Movies show spotless marble halls, gleaming banquets, the warm glow of torches dancing over polished stone, the noble lord at his long table, the lady in silk beside him, the loyal knights gathered like storybook heroes. But the truth? The truth smells of smoke, sweat, and sewage. If you ever walked into a real medieval castle, not the Hollywood kind, but the living, breathing fortress of the 13th century, your first instinct wouldn't be awe. It would be to cover your nose. Because this place, this monument to power and permanence, wasn't built for comfort. It was built for fear, for hunger, for survival. And the stone still remembers. So tonight we're going to peel back the centuries. Dim the lights. Get comfortable. Let the world around you fade, until all that's left is the hum of your own breathing. Now imagine you're standing on a narrow dirt road. Ahead of you on a hill rises the castle of your lord. It looks beautiful from here. Golden sunlight on grey walls, banners fluttering. A place of majesty, a symbol of safety. But as you start climbing toward it, the illusion begins to crack. The first thing you notice is the smell. Not the sweet air of country fields, but something heavier. Acrid smoke from hundreds of hearths, the sour reek of livestock, the sharp bite of human waste poured into the moat below. It sticks in your throat. The breeze brings no relief. You pass through the outer gate, massive timbers studded with iron. From a distance, it seemed carved by perfection. Up close, it's scarred and splintered, the wood blackened with years of smoke and rain. You run your hand across it. The grain is rough, sticky with old pitch. This is no palace door. It's a scarred wall pretending to be an entrance. Inside the bailey, life hits you like a hammer. Chickens scatter at your feet. A blacksmith's forge screams with the clang of iron on iron. Dogs fight over scraps near the dung heap. Peasants trudge through the mud, heads bowed. No one looks noble. No one looks clean. This is the first lie the stone tells, in that castles were clean. They weren't. The ground beneath your boots is soaked with centuries of waste. Servants dump chamber pots straight from windows, letting filth splash wherever it lands. Rain doesn't wash it away. It churns it deeper. Even now, archaeologists say castle soil holds layers of human excrement, compressed over time. The quiet memory of everyone who ever lived here. The second lie? That castles were comfortable. Walk inside the main gatehouse. It's colder here, darker. The sunlight fades almost instantly. The air smells of damp mortar and burned tallow. Torches hiss against the walls, dripping resin that never quite stops burning. You can taste it, smoke thick as fog clinging to your tongue. You remember the movies, wide halls filled with light, but in truth medieval stone swallowed light whole. Walls were 4, sometimes 5 feet thick. Windows were slits, barely wide enough to aim an arrow through. Even during the day, rooms felt like twilight. You would have carried a candle just to cross a corridor. Your eyes adjust slowly. You see it now. Not shining marble floors, but rushes spread over uneven stone. They hide dirt, spilled ale, rat droppings. Every few months, servants throw new straw over the old, never removing the layer beneath. The smell is a mix of mildew, mold, and decay. And here in this darkness, people live their lives. The lady of the castle in her wool gown. Her children playing with carved toys near the hearth. The servants darting like ghosts between shadows, trying not to be noticed. The hearth fire burns constantly, not for romance, but necessity. Without it, the chill would kill you by morning. The walls bleed moisture. Touch them and they sweat under your fingers. You take a slow breath. The smoke burns your throat. This is the third lie. On the castles were warm, they weren't. Winter here was a siege in itself. The stones trapped cold the way a tomb traps silence. Even the great hall, with its roaring fire and hundreds of bodies packed together, could feel like a grave when the wind howled through the arrow slits. Servants slept in corners, pressed together for warmth. Nobles huddled in fur-lined cloaks near the fire, not because it was elegant, but because it was survival. You look around again, everywhere. The sound of dripping, water leaking from the ceiling, collecting in shallow cracks. The castle is alive with small, ceaseless noises, rats scurrying in the walls, the groan of beams in wind, the faint hum of prayers from the chapel beyond. Stone doesn't silence. It amplifies. Every cough, every whisper bounces back at you. Privacy doesn't exist here. Every secret carries. This is the fourth lie. That castles were peaceful, they were never quiet, never restful. Even at night when the fires dimmed and the halls fell to shadow, life inside the stone continued. Guards pacing the walls, dogs barking in the courtyard, servants whispering over dying embers. The castle breathed like a beast that never slept, and through it all there's you, standing at the edge of the great hall, watching the illusion crumble. The tapestries that looked so grand from afar are threadbare and stiff with smoke. The goblets of silver are tarnished, the food on the table salted until it burns the tongue. The laughter of nobles feels brittle, hollow, a ritual to chase away the cold and fear outside. You realize something. Castles weren't built for joy. They were built for survival. Every inch of stone is a weapon or a shield. Arrow loops, murder holes, narrow stairs that twist to favor the right-handed defender. Even beauty here has a purpose. Every carving, every arch, every flagstone was part of a machine designed to keep others out and to remind those within who truly held power. You wander toward the outer wall. A gust of wind howls through a broken shutter, carrying the scent of the moat below. Stagnant water, dead fish, rot. You look out through a slit window and see the village far beneath you, where smoke rises from small thatched roofs. That's where you belong. Not here among stone and silence, but among the living. Because inside these walls everything is still, even the laughter sounds rehearsed. Even the warmth feels borrowed. The people who built these castles thought they were building eternity. But stone erodes, power fades, and every echo you hear tonight, every footstep, every whisper in the corridors, is a ghost pretending to still be alive. You take one last look at the hall, at the fire flickering in the darkness. From outside it looks like a beacon of glory. From within, it's a furnace for those trapped inside. That's what the stone doesn't tell you. That these walls weren't monuments to chivalry or romance. They were cages built by fear. And as you step back into the night, the castle looms behind you, vast and silent. The moonlight glints off wet stone, and for a heartbeat it almost looks alive. You realize the final truth. Every stone fortress is a memory of power, of cruelty, of endurance. And though the banners are gone and the lords are dust, the stones still whisper the same words. I remember what you tried to hide. The castle looks eternal now, stone against the sky as if it had always been there. But every block, every wall, every tower was carried by hands that bled. Tonight you'll stand among them, not as a lord or a visitor, but as one of the thousands who built these walls. So take a breath, quiet your thoughts, and let the centuries fall away. The torches fade. The modern world dissolves. You are standing in the dust of a 13th century construction site. The morning begins before the sun. A grey light spreads across the quarry like the last glow of a dying candle. The air is cold, heavy with the smell of wet stone and lime dust. You can taste the dust before you even see it, sharp, dry, bitter on your tongue. The first sound is the hammer, then another, and another, a steady rhythm like a heartbeat beneath the earth. Dozens of men work the face of the quarry, their bodies bent, their breaths shallow. Iron chisels strike limestone with dull thuds that echo off the cliffs. Each blow shakes through your arms, through your ribs. There's no music here, no shouting, just the endless mechanical sound of labor. You swing your hammer again. The chisel jumps, sparks flick from stone. Your palms are already blistered through rough leather gloves. You press on because there are quotas, and a lord who does not care if your hands break, only that his fortress rises. A master mason watches from above. He's a skilled man, rare and well paid. His hands are white with lime, his eyes squinting through the haze. He measures the angle of each cut with simple wooden tools, tracing symbols of geometry, older than memory. But he doesn't swing the hammer. That's your job. You and the others, peasants, laborers, serfs. Your names will never be carved into the walls you build. The stone you free from the quarry weighs as much as a horse. It must be lifted, dragged, hauled mile after mile to the castle site. You wedge thick ropes under its edges, wetting them so the fibers won't burn against your skin. 6 men heave together, chanting under their breath to keep time. The ropes creak. One slip, and the block will roll, crushing whoever falls beneath it. It's happened before. It will happen again. A crushed chest, a broken leg, a skull split open like soft fruit. There are no proper graves for workers. The priest prays quickly, and the foreman orders another man to take the dead one's place before the body is cold. The wall cannot stop growing. At the construction site, the air trembles with sound. The clang of chisels, the rasp of saws cutting timber, the rhythmic creak of cranes and pulleys. You see the skeleton of the castle rising, beams and scaffolds wrapped around half-finished towers like a web of splinters. You climb the wooden ladder, your bare feet gripping the slick rungs. The ropes sway, the planks creak. Every step could be your last. One misplaced foot, one snapped rope, and you'll fall 30 feet onto the rocks below. There's no safety net, no harness, no miracle waiting to catch you. The masons shout to one another over the wind. A bucket of lime is hoisted up beside you. The smell burns your throat. You mix it with sand and water, your hands submerged in the caustic slurry until the skin stings and peels. The mixture bubbles and hisses like boiling acid. That's how lime works. It eats. It eats the flesh if you're careless, the lungs if you breathe too deep. And yet this is what holds the stones together, the alchemy of pain and permanence. Down below, children carry buckets of water from the stream. Women bring food, stale bread and onions, to the laborers who work until their bodies fail. The Lord Steward stands nearby with a tally stick, counting loads, measuring progress, barking orders. The castle must rise on schedule. It must rise to remind everyone who owns the land. The rhythm of the day is relentless. Hammer, chisel, hammer, breath. You fall into it like a trance, your body moving while your mind drifts somewhere else, anywhere else. But pain brings you back every time. The dust cuts your throat. Your fingers split open and bleed into the mortar. Your back burns, your knees ache. The stone doesn't care. The stone takes what it's given and asks for more. By midday, the air is thick enough to choke on. The wind carries grit that grinds against your teeth. Men cough constantly, deep, hollow coughs that never quite stop. Years from now, they'll die in their sleep. Lungs turn to chalk, their bodies still breathing stone dust. No one will call it illness. It's just what happens to men who build for other men's glory. In the corner, the blacksmith works. He shapes the chisels and nails that keep everything together. The forge roars, spitting orange sparks that stick to his arms like fireflies. He barely notices anymore. The smell of burning skin has become part of his day. Nearby, oxen drag wagons full of fresh-cut blocks. The ground trembles under the weight. Each wagon sinks deep into the mud, wheels turning slow, leaving ruts that fill with grey water. You hear the overseer shouting again. Another man fell, another delay. But the sun keeps climbing, and so must you. By dusk, the site glows red with sunset. The towers look almost finished, catching light like ancient bones. The workers collapse on the ground wherever they stand, too tired to speak. You sit among them, hands trembling, lungs burning. The sound of hammers fades, replaced by the soft hiss of cooling lime. For a moment, the world feels still. You look at the wall you've built. It seems beautiful in this light. Straight lines, perfect symmetry. But you know what's inside it. You know how many bodies it's taken to make it stand. You remember the man who fell from the scaffold last week, the way his body hit the stones, the way everyone kept working because the wall couldn't wait. You remember your friend whose hands blistered until the skin came off in sheets. You remember the coughing at night, the quiet gasps as men try to breathe through lungs full of dust. They'll tell you this castle is a monument to faith and order, that it will stand for 1,000 years, but you know the truth. Every stone is a gravestone. Every tower is a tomb. Every wall, every gate, every arch holds the echo of someone who swung a hammer until his heart gave out. And when the Lord rides through these gates for the first time, he'll see perfection, strength, power, permanence. He'll never see the blood in the mortar. He'll never smell the dust of the quarry. He'll never hear the whispers of the dead that live between the cracks. You stand and wipe your hands against your tunic. The lime burns the cuts on your skin, sharp and clean. You look up at the unfinished keep, the shadow stretching long across the ground. The stones glow faintly in the dying light, each one holding a secret, the memory of pain turned to permanence. The foreman calls for one last load before nightfall. You pick up your hammer. The rhythm begins again. Hammer, breath, the castle keeps growing, and somewhere inside its rising walls, your bones are already part of it. The castle rises now, its bones of limestone and granite gleaming pale against the morning fog. You've walked this road before, first as a peasant staring up at power, then as a builder bleeding into the mortar. But tonight you return as something different, a silent traveler wandering through history's shell, a guest in a house made of ghosts. So take a breath. The air smells faintly of wet earth and smoke. Step closer. You're about to walk through the skeleton of stone. The outer wall looms ahead, not high enough to impress the modern eye, but wide enough to swallow a cart whole. Its base is thick, nearly 15 feet of cold masonry layered with mortar that still seeps dampness centuries later. The top bristles with jagged battlements, each tooth worn smooth by wind and rain. From afar it looks solid, permanent. Up close you see the truth. Chips, repairs, faint seams where different generations rebuilt after storms or sieges. The castle is not one creation. It's a lifetime of additions, scars upon scars. You pass through the first gate. 2 wooden doors plated with iron, scarred with old burn marks. Above them a tower casts its shadow. The gatehouse, the throat of the fortress. You walk beneath it, between walls that rise on either side like cliffs. The passage narrows, funneled and dark. You walk through the portcullis, the iron grate still sharp with age. It would have fallen fast in its day, a spiked trap of timber and steel, heavy enough to crush bone. Now it rests above you, half raised, motionless. As you step beneath it, the air grows colder. Stone drinks warmth like a sponge. The further you go, the more the sunlight fades until your breath becomes visible, faint mist in a world of echoes. Your footsteps ring against the flagstones, bouncing down the long tunnel until they return to you, hollow and delayed. It feels like walking through the throat of something ancient. Beyond the gatehouse lies the outer bailey, the castle's first courtyard. The ground is uneven, pocked with ruts and old foundations. Once this was the heart of daily life. Workshops, stables, kitchens, blacksmiths. You can still smell the ghost of it. Iron dust, manure, smoke. The walls on either side rise high, topped with narrow walkways known as wall walks. Guards once patrolled them in shifts, their boots echoing over stone while torches guttered in the wind. You can almost hear them still. Quiet murmurs, the scrape of armor, the creak of wooden bows. Follow the wall with your eyes and you'll find the corner towers, round, thick, and domed with age. Each one a defensive eye watching every approach, every shadow. Their spiral stairs twist clockwise, a clever cruelty of design. It meant that any attacker climbing up the steps would have his sword arm hindered by the inner wall, while the defender's blade swung freely. Architecture as weapon. Geometry as death. You step closer. Inside the tower the air changes again, heavier, colder, stiller. Damp lime coats the walls like frost. You touch it and your fingers come away gritty and wet. The smell is sharp mineral, not unpleasant but clean in a way that feels almost sterile. Drops of water fall from the ceiling into shallow pools, each one echoing like a clock counting centuries. You climb the spiral stair. The steps are narrow, worn smooth by the feet of soldiers long gone. Each one is slightly uneven, not by accident but by design. A perfect rhythm could kill you here. Irregular steps slow the intruder, break his balance, force hesitation. You reach the top, stepping out into the open light. From here you see it, the castle in full breathing form. Below you sprawls a network of wards and walls, halls and keeps, each part feeding into the other like veins in a living body. This was not a house. It was a machine. Every angle, every height, every corner existed for a reason. Defense, dominance, control. At the heart of it all stands the keep, the inner tower, the last refuge, the Lord's cold sanctuary. From this distance it looks calm, square, balanced. Up close it's monstrous. The walls are so thick that windows vanish into tunnels of stone. You could scream at the top of your lungs inside and barely be heard outside. You cross the bridge into the keep's main door. Inside, it's darker still. The light falls away after just a few steps, leaving only the faint reflection of your torch on slick lime wash. The air tastes of dust and iron. You hear the faintest echoes, your breath, your footsteps, your heartbeat bouncing back from walls that have listened for 700 years. In one corner, a staircase climbs upward, wrapping tightly around the inner shaft. In another, narrow corridors branch off toward chambers you can't see. You follow one, your hand brushing the wall for balance. The surface is cool and wet, the plaster peeling away like parchment. Somewhere deep inside, you feel the pulse of the castle, the constant slow dripping of water, the whisper of air moving through cracks unseen. The walls here aren't straight. They bow inward slightly, following the pressure of centuries. They breathe, expanding and contracting with heat, cold, and time. Every wall you pass has swallowed a life. Every joint between stones holds dust from the men who mixed it, coughed it, bled it. The keep is not dead, it's only sleeping. Now you reach the great hall, vast, empty, and echoing. Light spills through high, narrow windows, tracing long golden blades across the flagstones. You walk through them slowly, each step setting the air trembling. The hall was built not for comfort, but for show. Here the Lord could dine, judge, punish, or pray, all under the same cold gaze of the walls. At one end stands the hearth, massive, blackened by centuries of fire. Above it, faint carvings survive, vines, angels, fragments of saints eroded by smoke. The ceiling arches overhead like ribs, wood darkened and dry. The hall feels almost sacred, not holy but heavy with the weight of memory. You whisper a word just to hear it echo. It travels up the ceiling, along the beams, through the cracks, until it fades somewhere you can't follow. The castle swallows sound the way time swallows everything. Step through the next doorway. The corridor narrows again. Small chambers, sleeping quarters, kitchens, long cold. Each one is a story untold. The servants' rooms lie deep underground, beside the storage vaults where barrels of ale once sat. Above the solar, the Lord's private chamber, catches the only sunlight worth having. Even that room is bare by modern eyes. Rough blankets, a wooden chair, a narrow window overlooking the outer wall. The beauty of the castle lies not in luxury, but in design, function woven into fear. Every wall is too thick to burn, every stair too narrow to rush, every room designed to hold, delay, or hide. It is perfection born of paranoia. You can feel it even now, the way every line, every turn, every shadow seems to watch you. You return at last to the courtyard. The day is dying, and the sun paints the towers gold one last time before sinking. The shadows stretch long, climbing the walls like ghosts trying to return home. You stand still and listen. The castle hums softly, not sound but presence. This is the skeleton of stone, a body without flesh, a mind without mercy. Its bones were laid by the weak for the strong, shaped by fear and genius in equal measure. It endures because it knows nothing else. The wind shifts through the empty halls, whispering faintly through arrow slits. The sound is almost human, a sigh, a word half-formed. You close your eyes. For a moment it almost feels like the castle is breathing, and as night falls, the stone around you exhales, a deep, ancient sound, like the settling of the world itself. The torches flicker. The air grows colder still, and you understand why they called this place a fortress. Because inside its bones there is no life, only endurance, only the echo of those who built it. From a distance, the castle glows like a promise, golden banners, proud towers, and sunlight flashing on the Lord's high window. To the peasants in the valley, it looks like paradise. A life of silk, of feasts, of endless warmth. But that's the lie the stone tells best. Tonight you will see it as it truly was. Not from the mud of the village, nor from the scaffolds of the builders, but from the cold echoing corridors where power pretended to live. So take a slow breath, step inside the Lord's hall, and remember, appearances deceive most easily when they're lit by candlelight. The first thing you notice is the silence. You expected music, laughter, feasts, but what you hear is emptiness. The great hall stretches long and high, too large for comfort. The fire in the hearth burns small, swallowed by the size of the room. The heat never reaches the far end, where the lord and lady sit beneath a faded tapestry. It's cold, colder than outside. The thick walls keep the wind away, but they also keep in the damp. Every breath hangs in the air like fog. You rub your hands together for warmth, the skin tightening in the chill. The tables are laid with pewter plates, not silver. Real silver is rare, reserved for holy days. The cups shimmer in the firelight, polished bright, but they're made of lead, their beauty poisonous. No one knows it yet. When the Lord's children grow pale and weak, the priest will call it divine punishment, not heavy metal. The lady of the castle adjusts her veil. Her eyes are tired. Her gown, though fine, is heavy with fur. Beneath it linen shifts, rough against the skin. You'd think nobility wore luxury. But most of it was armor. Layers against the cold, against the itch of lice, against the smell that never left the room. The Lord himself leans on the table, his hand wrapped around a cup of spiced wine. He's handsome in theory, broad-shouldered, confident, but close up you see the truth. His nails are black with grime. His teeth are the color of bone that's been left too long in the earth. His hair is greasy beneath the thin gold circlet he wears. He looks powerful, yes, but only if you don't notice the draft. Dinner begins. The servants move like shadows, carrying trays of roasted meat. The smell is strong, heavy, fatty, old. Most of it is salted beyond reason, preserved months ago in barrels. Fresh meat is for the rarest days, and even then, the flavor is half smoke, half decay. The Lord tears at it with his hands. Knives exist, but forks are rare. Fingers are faster. He dips the bread in wine to soften it. The crust's hard from the damp. When he laughs, a small cloud of steam leaves his mouth. Even in his own hall, the air is freezing. You look around the room. The nobles wear color and fur, but everyone's eyes are rimmed red from the smoke of the fire. The candles drip tallow, thick and animal-scented, their wax collecting on the table like pale flesh. Fleas leap from one cloak to another. Every few moments someone scratches. No one comments. That's the glamour they never show, the itch of the rich. The parasites don't care about class. They feast on velvet the same as burlap. A servant slips past you, head bowed. She carries a bucket toward the corner, where a small wooden screen hides a chamber pot. The stench mingles with the smell of roasted meat, of smoke and sweat. She empties it out the window, straight down the wall where it joins the moat below. Tomorrow the smell will rise again, and still they'll dine above it. The dogs sit near the Lord's feet, snapping at bones tossed to the rushes. The floor beneath the straw is layered with months of refuse, bones, spilled ale, dropped food, dead rats. When the straw becomes too foul, the servants simply scatter fresh straw over it. Cleanliness is illusion, renewed by covering the truth. After the meal, a minstrel plays softly in the corner. The tune is old, half forgotten, thin as the sound of wind through broken glass. The Lord smiles, his belly full, his power unquestioned, here in his own house among his own men. But even now the illusion trembles. Outside the door, guards shiver in chainmail, stamping their feet to keep blood flowing. In the kitchens below, servants cough in the smoke of the fire pits, eyes watering from the soot. And upstairs, in the solar where the Lord's children sleep, the frost gathers on the inside of the glass. The only warmth is the body heat of the dogs curled beneath their beds. You walk through the corridor toward those chambers. The torches hiss as you pass. The stone walls sweat in the cold, beads of moisture sliding down into cracks where mold grows green and black. You brush against the surface. It's slick, alive, almost breathing. The tapestries hanging there are not decorations. They're insulation, thick wool meant to keep out the cold. But even they reek faintly of mildew. You can see where mice have chewed the edges, leaving trails like handwriting in the fabric. You pause before the door to the Lord's private chamber. Inside you hear low murmuring. A priest, perhaps, or his steward reading letters from the king. You push it open. The room is smaller than you expected. A single bed with thick curtains dominates the space. There's no fire. The smoke would blacken the ceiling too quickly. A single candle flickers beside a small table of polished oak. On it lies a silver comb dark with rust and a basin of cloudy water. This is where power sleeps. This is where the man who commands armies lies awake, shivering, afraid of the draft that crawls through the cracks at night. You sit on the edge of the bed. The straw mattress creaks under your weight, uneven, lumpy. It smells faintly of sweat, smoke, and lavender, the perfume of an age that knows no cleanliness. You pull the curtain closed. The air grows still. For a moment, you can almost believe you are safe. But power here is fragile. If the Lord's men abandon him, he is nothing. If his crops fail, he starves like anyone else. If a rival marches on his gates, all this grandeur turns to panic. The gold ring on his finger is thin. The jewels in his crown are glass. And every night he sleeps beneath the same roof that leaks on his servants. That is the illusion. The castle looks strong. The Lord looks eternal. But inside these walls, both are prisoners of their own pride. You leave the room quietly. The corridor stretches before you, a tunnel of shadows. You can hear the wind outside whistling through arrow slits, a voice that never stops speaking. It says the same thing it's whispered for centuries. All this will crumble. All power fades. All warmth ends in cold. You walk back through the great hall where the fire has burned low. The nobles have gone. The servants sweep bones into the rushes, the dogs sleep by the dying embers. The Lord's chair stands empty, its carved lions staring into darkness. The banners droop. The candles gutter, and the illusion of power fades with the smoke. You step outside into the night. The moonlight paints the towers silver, beautiful again from a distance, the same way it always fools the world, shining on a cage and calling it a throne. From below, the peasants will look up and see the light and say, "There lives our Lord, powerful, noble, blessed." They'll never know that inside those walls he sleeps cold, itching, and afraid. They'll never know that even kings tremble when the wind howls through the cracks. And as you walk away, you understand. The stone was never meant to keep enemies out. It was meant to keep fear in. The fire crackles before dawn. You can hear it before you see it. The soft hiss of wet wood, the faint pop of fat dripping into the coals. The great hall is waking. Smoke curls through the air in lazy threads, catching the light of the first torches. The smell fills the chamber, a mix of burning oak, old grease, and something darker that clings to the stone itself. The hall smells of fat and smoke, and rats. It always has. By daylight, this is the castle's beating heart, the place where the Lord displays his wealth, where his people eat, where his power tastes real for a few fleeting hours. But beneath the ritual and the noise, there is one simple truth. The feast is a lie. It is not abundance. It is survival, dressed in banners and pride. Servants rush through the cold corridors, arms burdened with baskets and pots. Their bare feet slap softly against the floor, a rhythm of panic muffled by straw. You hear knives scraping against iron, the clang of a ladle against a cauldron, the rhythmic thump of dough being kneaded by rough red hands. Every sound adds to the morning's chorus, quiet chaos beneath the Lord's calm world. The cook stands near the hearth, his face shining with sweat despite the chill. A massive cauldron bubbles at his side, steam rising in greasy ribbons. The smell is thick. Meat, ale, onions, something sweet, something foul. He stirs slowly, muttering a prayer to St. Lawrence, patron of cooks and the burned. What's in the pot? You don't ask because in a castle food is never wasted, not even when it should be. What fed the dogs yesterday feeds the servants today. What the Lord refused at dinner becomes tomorrow's stew. Even spoiled meat can be made to seem edible if you drown it in enough spices. Cinnamon, pepper, vinegar. Rare treasures meant to disguise rot. You glance toward the upper end of the hall. The high table gleams in the light. Carved oak, polished pewter, a tapestry hanging behind it showing lions and saints. This is where the Lord will sit, the symbol of control. the theater of survival. When the feast begins, he will eat first, even if his stomach twists from the smell. He will raise his cup. Beer or watered wine, never plain water. Water kills. The wells carry sickness. Everyone drinks beer, even the children. It's weak, warm, sour, but safer than the river that carries filth from the latrines above. The servants drink the dregs, thicker, cloudier. The first plates arrive. Bread has hard and stale, used more as a dish than food. Trenchers, they call them. When the meal is done, the bread will be given to the dogs or the poor, soaked through with grease. Then come the meats. Boar, mutton, venison if the hunt was good, fish if it was Friday. The smell is overwhelming, sweet, burnt, sharp. The hall fills with smoke until your eyes sting. Grease runs down the spits and hisses in the fire, sending sparks like golden insects into the air. You can hear them, tick, hiss, crackle, a rhythm that matches the low murmur of voices. It's almost hypnotic. Servants move like dancers between the benches, placing platters down, bowing, retreating. Wooden spoons scrape bowls. Knives clink on pewter. A cough here, a laugh there. The soundscape of hunger pretending to be celebration. You look around. At first glance, the feast seems grand. Dozens of faces, firelight gleaming on armor and silk, voices rising and falling like waves. But then you notice the details, the quiet tremor in a servant's hand, the dull look in a knight's eyes. They are eating fast, desperate, not because the food is good, but because they don't know when they'll eat this well again. Outside the walls, the harvest failed. The granaries are half empty. Bread cost twice what it did last winter. And though the Lord's hall still echoes with laughter, it's thinner now, stretched like the meat on his plate. You can feel it in the air, that brittle edge between plenty and famine. A woman carries a platter past you, roast swan, blackened and glistening. Its neck is bent backward, beak still intact, feathers plucked but wings reattached for show. It's grotesque, beautiful. The Lord smiles as it's placed before him. He believes it means power. You know it means waste, because every extravagant feast is a performance, a display to remind the starving world outside that its master is untouched. That hunger belongs to someone else. Down near the lower tables, the servants eat what's left. Their plates are full of barley mush, broth thin as water, bread dark as earth. They eat quickly, eyes on their hands, speaking little. You can smell the difference between their food and the Lord's. Less spice, more truth. The smell of boiled cabbage and desperation. A rat scurries across the far corner of the hall. No one screams. No one moves. It's just another guest. The dogs chase it lazily, tails wagging, half-fed and half-starved. The air grows hotter. The fire roars. The walls sweat. You can feel the grease in your hair, the film on your tongue. The smoke rises until it disappears into the blackness above, where wooden beams vanish into shadow. Up there, the soot hangs like a second ceiling. Years of feasts turn to dust. When the plates are cleared, musicians begin to play. A flute, a drum, a voice singing of saints and kings. The tune is haunting, worn thin by repetition. The guests murmur, half drunk, the edges of joy fraying into exhaustion. The Lord leans back in his chair. He's eaten his fill. He'll call this night victory, but his eyes drift toward the window slit. Beyond it, the wind carries the smell of smoke from the villages, the smell of hunger that no wall can keep out. Later, when the hall empties, the servants begin their second shift. They sweep bones into the rushes, scrub the tables with sand and ash. The fire dies slow, embers glowing red like tired eyes. One servant yawns, her hand brushing crumbs into a bucket. She finds a half-eaten crust, hesitates, then slips it into her sleeve. No one will notice. Tomorrow that crust will feed her child. The silence returns, soft and deep. You can still hear the faint echoes, the scrape of spoons, the clang of knives, the murmur of forgotten songs. They fade but never truly vanish. The hall keeps them. It keeps every feast, every hunger, every sigh. You stand in the center of the room. The smell of fat and smoke clings to your clothes. You look up toward the blackened ceiling and imagine how many winters it's seen, how many desperate celebrations under the same roof. The same hunger wearing different faces. The banners move slightly in the draught. The last candle flickers, its flame bending toward the door. And for a moment you understand. The great hall was not a place of comfort. It was a ritual, a reminder that no matter how bright the fire burns, there is always darkness waiting outside. The Lord eats first, the servants eat last. And between them, in the echo of knives and the flicker of light, lives the oldest truth of all: every feast is a prayer whispered against starvation. And every castle smells in the end of hunger. The castle sleeps, but you don't. You never do. Your day begins long before the sun ever touches the walls, before the roosters stir in the stables, before the Lord yawns in his furs. You rise in the dark, barefoot on the cold floor, hands already raw from yesterday's work. The castle never thanks you, but it needs you. It breathes because of you and others like you, the silent heartbeat beneath its stone ribs. So tonight you are not a visitor, not a lord or knight. You are a servant of the stone. You carry a pail up the winding stairs. The handle bites into your fingers, heavy with water drawn from the well before dawn. Each step creaks, each breath burns. The stair spirals endlessly, turning tighter the higher you climb, the air growing colder, thinner. You pause once to shift your grip, but you don't rest. Rest is for those who own time. At the top, the corridor stretches dimly before you, grey walls, torches sputtering. You pass beneath a narrow window slit. A gust of icy air cuts across your face. Somewhere below you hear the dogs bark. The kitchen fires roaring to life. You move quickly. The Lord's chamber must be ready before he wakes. You pour the water into a bronze basin, careful not to spill. Then you stir the coals in the hearth until they glow again. The smoke rises, whispering along the ceiling beams. You add a log, step back, watch it catch. The warmth touches your skin, and for a moment it feels human. But you don't linger. There are other rooms waiting, other fires to light. You turn to the bed. The sheets are damp with cold and sweat. You pull them tight, shake out the fleas as best you can, then sprinkle crushed herbs along the corners. Lavender if you have it, straw dust if you don't. Your hands move without thought. You've done this every morning for years. You don't remember when you began. Maybe you never started. Maybe you were born into it. In the corridor, the other servants move like ghosts. You hear the quiet shuffle of slippers, the clink of buckets, the murmured prayers for strength. No one speaks loudly. The walls listen. A young kitchen boy scurries past you, clutching a basket of bread. He looks no older than 12, his face pale beneath the soot. You nod and he nods back, eyes down. He'll spend the day feeding the fire that feeds everyone else. He'll go to sleep smelling of smoke and wake to more of it. The laundress trudges behind, arms full of linens. Her knuckles are cracked and bleeding from the cold. She hums softly under her breath, not a song, just a sound to fill the silence. Her back bends as she walks, as if the castle itself has pressed her into shape. You head toward the great hall. It's empty now. Only embers glowing on the hearth, the air thick with last night's feast. The smell of fat and ash clings to your hair, your skin, your clothes. You take up a broom of bundled twigs and begin to sweep. The sound is soft, scrape, brush, scrape. Bits of bone, spilled ale, crumbs, rat droppings, all swept into piles. The straw underfoot hides nothing. It only moves the filth from one corner to another. When you finish, your arms ache. But there's still more. There's always more. The castle doesn't stay clean. It doesn't care that you do. Down in the kitchens, the day never ends. The fire roars, filling the air with heat that burns the lungs. The cooks shout over the noise, stirring, chopping, tasting, shouting again. You join them, slicing onions, tears streaming from the smoke and the sting. The pot beside you bubbles with broth, thick, salty, reused for days. The smell is comforting and sickening at once. A rat runs along the rafters. No one notices. You keep cutting. The head cook, an older woman with a voice like gravel, slaps your shoulder. "Faster," she says, though you're already moving as fast as your hands allow. You nod, you always nod. To speak back would be foolish. There's a line between obedience and ruin, and you've learned not to cross it. When the bells ring, it's time to serve. You line up with the others, jug bearers, scullions, grooms, waiting to carry trays up to the hall. The food burns your hands through the wooden plates. You climb again, stairs slick with grease and spilled ale. At the top, the doors open to the Lord's laughter. You bow. You serve. You vanish. The feast is loud, but you are silent. You are part of the furniture, part of the rhythm. When you spill, you apologize. When they spill, you clean. When they laugh, you keep your head down. You glance once at the table. Roasted meats, warm bread, pitchers of beer. It looks like paradise, but you know what it costs. You've seen the children in the village with bellies empty as drums. You've heard the women pray for rain while the Lord blesses his hunt. You look away. You have work to do. When the feast ends, you're still not done. The bones must be gathered, the rushes replaced, the floor swept again. You move through the wreckage, careful not to wake those passed out in their chairs. Your hands smell of grease and ash. You don't notice anymore. The fire crackles low. You take a moment to stand before it, just close enough to feel the heat. Your eyes close. It's the only warmth you'll have tonight. Later, in the servants' quarters, the air is colder than stone. You share the space with a dozen others, curled under thin blankets, breathing softly in the dark. You can hear the wind outside howling through the cracks. You pull your blanket tighter, but it doesn't help much. Someone coughs. Someone murmurs a prayer. Someone laughs quietly, the kind of laugh that comes from exhaustion more than joy. You think about your day, the stairs, the water, the broom, the fire, the endless rhythm of service. You wonder how long you've been here. You wonder if the castle remembers your name. You suspect it doesn't. The castle doesn't see you. It only sees what you do. You are its shadow, its lungs, its heartbeat. And when you die, someone else will take your place, moving in the same paths, breathing the same air, carrying the same pail up the same stairs. That is the truth of it. Stone endures. Servants don't. But as you drift to sleep, something strange happens. You hear the walls settle, the beams creak, the faint sigh of the wind through the halls. It sounds almost like a voice, quiet, low, familiar. Maybe the castle does remember. Maybe every footstep, every breath, every whispered prayer leaves an echo. And maybe that's what keeps it alive. Not the Lord's name carved in the gate, but the invisible lives spent holding it together. You close your eyes. The fire has gone out, but you still see its glow behind your eyelids. The warmth you gave it, the work you poured into it, still burns somewhere within the walls. The castle sleeps again. And you, the nameless, tireless servant, dream of a day when the stone no longer needs you. But you know deep down that day will never come, because castles do not stand because of kings. They stand because of hands like yours, hands that carry water, hands that sweep and bleed and build, hands that vanish, but leave their touch in the stone forever. The castle looks magnificent from the outside, all proud towers, high banners, and perfect symmetry. But walk inside, breathe deep, and you'll discover what the poets always forgot to mention: the stench. It's the quiet truth of every fortress, every hall, every noble dream built on dirt and human waste. It clings to the walls, seeps into the mortar, lingers in the air long after the torches die. No matter how grand the castle, the smell never leaves the stone. You wake before dawn in the servants' quarters. The air is cold but not clean. It's a blend of smoke, sweat, tallow, and something faintly rotten. A scent so constant you no longer notice until it's gone. You climb the stair, water pail in hand, toward the Lord's chamber. Every step brings you past another scent: damp wool, sour ale, dying fire. And beneath it all, steady and unmistakable, the heavy breath of decay. There are no sewers here, no pipes, no drains. The castle's waste is the castle's secret, hidden but never gone. In the corner of the Lord's room stands a chamber pot, bronze, polished, expensive. You lift it carefully, your stomach tightening at the warmth of what's inside. You carry it to the narrow window slit and pour it out, watching it vanish into the darkness below. Somewhere down there, It lands in the moat, a sluggish pool of greenish water ringed by weeds and crawling things. By midday, the smell will rise again, drift through the courtyard, and cling to everything it touches. They call it refuse. You call it what it is. The garderobe sits higher up, the castle's idea of a toilet. You climb the narrow stairs, the walls closing around you. It's quiet, too quiet, the kind of silence that makes you notice every drip, every scrape of your boots. The air grows colder as you ascend. You push open the small wooden door. Inside is a stone bench, smooth from use, with a round hole cut through it. Below, a vertical shaft disappears into darkness. You lean over and look down. A faint trickle glistens in the gloom, ending somewhere in the moat. The smell rises to meet you, thick and sour. It's strange, the lords call this privacy. To you it feels like standing at the edge of an abyss. You sit in silence, listening. From deep below you can hear faint splashes, soft and irregular. Rats, maybe. Or the moat itself stirring in the cold. The sound follows you long after you leave. The stench is not just below. It's everywhere. The straw on the floor is soaked with old ale and waste from the dogs. The tapestries hide mildew spreading like veins across the walls. Even the air in the chapel smells faintly of wax, sweat, and rot. The kitchen has its own flavor of it, a stew of smoke and decay, where spoiled meat hides beneath a storm of spice. In the great hall, spilled wine sours on the tables before the next feast begins. And down in the dungeons, where the air never moves, the smell thickens until it feels like breath itself. It is not a scent anymore. It is a presence, a reminder that everything alive must decay, and everything powerful is built upon that truth. At night, the castle tries to disguise it. Candles are lit, herbs are burned, rose water is splashed over the rushes. For an hour, maybe two, the air feels lighter, lavender, mint, clove. But when the smoke clears, the real castle returns, the scent of centuries, the odor of life, unwashed, unhidden, undeniable. Walk the outer walls and you'll find another truth. The moat itself is a lie. People imagine clean water, shimmering like a mirror under the drawbridge. But what lies below is stagnant, thick as soup, crawling with insects, slick with waste. Every droplet that runs from the garderobe, every spilled chamber pot, every carcass tossed aside, it all finds its way here. The moat isn't protection, it's memory. It holds everything the castle tries to forget. You pause on the parapet and look down. The water glistens faintly in the torchlight, shifting with lazy ripples. The smell reaches you like a whisper, slow, damp, and sour. You breathe through your sleeve. It doesn't help. Below, a guard walks the wall, his boots crunching against the frost. He coughs once, spits into the dark, mutters a curse about the stink. He's been here for years. The smell never leaves him either. He carries it home every night, in his hair, in his clothes, in his lungs. It seeps into everything. Inside the keep, the air is worse. The walls trap it, smoke, sweat, sewage, and hold it tight. Every door opened only moves it from one room to another. When you light a candle, the flame dances in the draft of invisible breath. Air that's been exhaled, inhaled, exhaled again for generations. You can almost taste it. Warm, bitter, old. You imagine what it must have been like during the plague years, when the bodies piled faster than they could be buried, when the priests burned incense day and night, when the courtyard stank of ash and death. The castle survived, of course. Stone always does. But the air remembers. Once a visiting monk wrote that a castle was a fortress of flesh. He meant the people inside, sweating, bleeding, breathing, trapped together until their lives soaked into the walls. You think of that often, because when you walk these corridors you can feel it. The warmth of centuries pressed into the cold. The ghosts of smells that never faded. You touch the stone with your hand. It's damp. The scent of lime and age clings to your skin. You rub it off, but the smell remains. Faint, persistent, ancient. At the end of the day, you stand again in the courtyard, the wind cutting across your face. For a moment it smells almost clean, just frost and smoke. Then the breeze shifts and the truth returns. The moat, the straw, the dogs, the waste. The living and the dying mingled together. You realize something. This smell is not filth alone. It's life. It's proof that people lived here, worked, ate, fought, loved, and died. The stench is memory, heavy and human. Without it, the castle would be only stone, cold, empty, silent. You take one last breath, deep and slow. It burns a little. But beneath the rot, you catch something else. Smoke, bread, wet stone, the faint sweetness of pine from the torches. It's awful. It's real. You smile because now you understand what no painting, no poem, no movie ever captured. The beauty of a medieval castle was never clean. It was honest. The stench never left the stone because the people who built it never truly did either. Their breath, their sweat, their filth, all of it remains sealed into the lime like the ghosts of 1,000 lives. You step away from the wall. The wind sighs across the courtyard, carrying the smell onward, spreading it thin across time. It will fade for a while, but it will return. It always does, because history doesn't smell like parchment or candlelight. It smells like this: smoke, sweat, waste, and everything that makes us human. And the castle, the proud eternal keep, still breathes it in, still holds it, still remembers. The castle at night does not rest. It only changes its breathing. By day it groans with hammer and voice, the clang of armor, the hiss of boiling pots. But when the torches dim and footsteps fade, another sound takes over, slower, softer, deeper. The quiet heartbeat of stone. Tonight you will hear it. You will walk through the castle after the fires are low, after the laughter dies, after the last door closes. And you will discover that sleep here is not peace. It is surrender. The corridors stretch long and cold. Your breath curls in the air like ghostly thread. Somewhere behind the walls the rats move. Tiny claws scraping along the beams, tails brushing across straw. You hear a whisper of dripping water, steady and rhythmic, echoing through the silence. A servant passes you carrying a small oil lamp. Her face flickers in the light, tired, hollow, half-shadow. She doesn't speak. No one does this late. Words feel too heavy for night. The air smells faintly of smoke, damp wool, and tallow. Every step you take feels too loud, like you're trespassing through someone else's dream. You climb the spiral stair. The steps are slick, the railing rough beneath your hand. The higher you go, the quieter it gets, as though the stone itself is holding its breath. At the top, you reach the Lord's chamber. The torch outside flickers weakly, barely lighting the doorway. You push it open. Inside, the room glows with a dull amber from the dying fire. A single log still burns, hissing softly, sending out more smoke than heat. The air is thick with the smell of ash and sweat. The bed stands against the far wall, tall, curtained, heavy with velvet and fur. It looks warm. It isn't. The Lord lies beneath the covers, breathing slow, lips pale from the cold. His wife sleeps beside him, her hair braided tight, her face turned away. They look peaceful, but you can see their breath fog in the air. The chamber is a tomb masquerading as comfort. Even the fire can't conquer the chill. You can feel it creeping in from the corners, seeping through cracks, sliding beneath the bed curtains like a living thing. Now step back. Imagine yourself here, centuries ago. You are not the Lord. You are the servant assigned to this chamber. You sleep on a pallet near the hearth, wrapped in a thin blanket that smells of smoke and old straw. Your bed is the floor itself, uneven, cold, alive with tiny movement. You feel them before you see them. Fleas, lice, the slow tickle of something crawling along your skin. You slap at it, but it doesn't help. The pests live in the straw, in the furs, even in the seams of the blankets. You share your warmth with them because you have no choice. They feed on the living, and the castle is very much alive. Sleep comes in fragments. You drift, then wake to the sound of the wind groaning through the arrow slits, to the snap of a timber cooling after the fire dies. Someone coughs in the dark. Someone whispers a prayer. The room settles again. Below in the great hall the fires burn lower still. The servants who clean after the feast curl up in corners, their backs against the walls, heads resting on folded arms. A few dogs lie scattered on the rushes, their fur twitching in dreams. The smell of smoke and grease still lingers, heavy as breath. The moonlight slides through the high windows, pale and sharp, tracing silver lines across the floor. Dust floats in it, slow and silent like tiny ghosts dancing. You can hear the castle sigh, the faint stretch of old wood, the quiet drip of condensation, the far-off call of an owl. Each sound is distant, rhythmic, the kind of noise that lulls you toward sleep but never lets you forget where you are. In the servants' quarters, the cold is crueler. The fire has long gone out. Dozens sleep packed together, wrapped in threadbare blankets, sharing body heat. You can hear every breath, every shift of weight. The air is thick with humanity. Sweat, damp cloth, straw dust. You try to sleep, but the stone beneath you feels alive, pulsing with the echo of centuries. The darkness here is not empty. It feels aware, as though the castle itself is dreaming. You roll onto your side. In the faint light from the hallway, you see the shape of another servant, an old woman curled like a child, muttering softly in her sleep. Maybe she's praying. Maybe she's remembering. The boy beside her twitches and murmurs. You recognize the sound. The same dream that visits everyone here eventually, falling from the scaffold, dropping into endless darkness, never hitting the ground. You turn away. You've dreamed it too. Up above in the guard towers, the watchmen fight sleep in the cold. They pace slowly, stamping their feet, blowing into their hands. Their breath plumes into the night, carried away by the wind. Far below, the village is silent, no lamps burning. Only the stars look back, thousands of tiny fires against the black. Sometimes they talk to each other in whispers. Sometimes they just listen. The wind howls through the arrow slits, moaning like something lost. The guards laugh quietly to hide their fear, but the sound dies quickly in the empty air. Even armed men are small in the dark. Back inside, the Lord stirs in his sleep. He dreams of warmth, of sunlight, of feasts that never end. His wife murmurs something, a name perhaps, and pulls the furs closer. The servant by the hearth opens one eye, watches, then turns away. The fire is gone now. Only embers remain, glowing faintly red like tired eyes. The room is almost completely dark. You can hear everything. The drip of water, the crack of the roof beams, the faint shuffle of something small in the walls. The cold has a voice here. It whispers through the cracks, through the corridors, through your bones. Not cruel, not loud, and just endless. Like the sea, you close your eyes. For a moment, you let yourself imagine what warmth might feel like. Not fire, but sunlight, the kind that never fades. You hold the thought as long as you can. It slips away like breath on glass. Sleep comes slowly. You sink into it the way a stone sinks into water. Quietly, heavily, without choice. The last thing you hear is the castle breathing with you. Inhale, exhale. A sound as old as the walls themselves, and when morning comes, nothing has changed. The fire will be relit, the beds remade, the same cold banished and reborn. The same fleas will wake and feed again. The same servants will rise to the same chores. The castle will open its eyes and pretend to live as it always does. But you'll remember the night, the sound of the silence, the chill in your lungs, the weight of the dark pressing gently against your chest. Because in the stillness behind those walls, you learned the truth: a castle doesn't sleep. It waits. It waits through centuries of nights like this, endless, frozen, filled with whispers. It waits for footsteps in its halls, for warmth that never comes, for the next heartbeat to echo in its bones. And even now, when you close your eyes and listen, you can still hear it. That low, patient breathing. The sound of 1,000 nights spent behind stone where the world outside is silent, and the only warmth that ever lasts comes from the dreams of those who dared to sleep inside. It begins with silence. Not the peaceful kind, but the kind that feels wrong and stretched thin, waiting to break. The castle wakes into stillness. The air too heavy, the morning too bright. You can taste the unease before you understand it. The servants move faster. The guards whisper instead of laugh, and somewhere far off the dogs won't stop barking. Then comes the sound. A deep, rolling thunder that isn't thunder at all. It's the first strike of a siege engine. A dull boom that travels through the ground, through the walls, through your chest. The world has changed. The castle is no longer a home. It's a target. You stand in the courtyard. Dust drifts from the ramparts above like the breath of an old god. The air trembles with each distant impact. You can hear the shouting of men on the outer walls, commands, prayers, curses. Someone rings the warning bell. Its echoes bleed through every corridor like veins of sound. The servants drop what they're carrying. You do too. Everyone runs, not screaming, not yet, but moving with that frantic, focused terror of those who know what's coming. The Lord's voice rises above the noise, ordering calm. Archers to the towers. Children to the chapel. The drawbridge raised. The gears creak and groan as the chains lift, slow and grinding. The world beyond the gate disappears behind the thick timbers of survival. You look up and see the first arrow arc across the sky. The castle has changed its face. The laughter is gone. The smell of bread is gone. In their place, fear and smoke. The kitchens now boil water for wounds instead of stews. The servants drag barrels and crates to block doors. Every hand that once polished silver now grips a pike. The castle becomes what it was always meant to be, a shell to outlast the storm. You climb the narrow stair to the battlements. Your hands slip on the cold stone as you rise. The sound grows louder with each step. Arrows hissing, catapults cracking, the rhythmic thunk of stones striking walls. At the top, you see it. The fields below are crawling with men, soldiers, mercenaries, banners of foreign colors. They move like a tide, dark and endless. Smoke coils from their campfires. The siege towers are rolling forward, wooden giants groaning with each push. You can smell them before they reach the walls. Sweat, iron, pitch, fear. A stone slams into the outer wall. The ground beneath you shivers. Dust rains from the parapet, coating your tongue with lime. You cough but quietly, as though even your breath might break something sacred. The archers line the walls. Their faces are pale, lips tight. You hear the draw of bowstrings, soft, rhythmic, strangely musical. The arrows rise black against the sky, then vanish. A moment later, the screams begin. You don't look down. Another impact. The wall shudders again, and the sound of cracking echoes through the stone like bones snapping under weight. Small fragments fall from above, hitting your shoulder, your hair, your hands. You brush them away. Ash, dust, maybe pieces of history itself. The man beside you mutters a prayer. He has been praying all morning. His lips move, but no sound comes out. He draws another arrow. Below in the courtyard, chaos blooms. Horses rear and kick at their stalls. Children cry in the chapel as mothers press them against the floor, whispering lullabies that can't drown out the thunder. Servants run water from the well until the rope burns their palms. The priest moves between them, shaking incense, muttering blessings that sound more like apologies. The Lord stands by the gatehouse, armor gleaming dull in the grey light. He speaks to his captain, calm, measured, but his eyes never leave the horizon. He knows what's coming. He knows what castles were truly built for. The first breach doesn't come with a roar, but with a sigh. A low groan of mortar, a shift beneath your feet. You turn toward the sound and see a thin crack splitting down the inner wall, fine as a vein. Dust pours from it in a slow stream, catching the light. Someone shouts below. The guards rush to brace the gate. You hear the thud of the battering ram now. Boom, 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 each strike rattling the air like thunder in your ribs. The archers fire until their fingers bleed. One slips, falls from the wall, his scream ending in silence. No one looks down. There's no time for mourning here. You can feel the heat now. The enemy's fire arrows striking the roofs, the pitch pots igniting. Smoke coils upward, black and oily, turning the air into a choking fog. Ash drifts across your face, soft as snow, settling in your hair, on your lips. You taste it. It tastes like endings. The Lord gives the order to retreat deeper into the keep. The gates won't last. The outer walls are cracking like ice in spring. You run through the corridors with the others, boots striking stone, lungs burning. The castle is shrinking, collapsing inward room by room. The servants drag barrels of water up the stairs. The guards slam doors and drop bars into place. The chapel fills with refugees, their whispers and prayers merging into one trembling sound. The statues stare down at them with blind, cold eyes. You find yourself in the great hall again. It feels smaller now, darker. The rushes are wet from spilled water and blood. The fire in the hearth spits sparks as ash falls from the rafters like grey rain. Someone begins to sing softly, a voice too quiet to stop the fear, but enough to steady trembling hands. The melody winds through the room like smoke, a lullaby for the dying. Outside, the noise swells and screams crashing, the raw, wild sound of men who know they are about to kill or be killed. The walls groan again. You look up and see a fine powder drifting from the ceiling. Cast stone cracks and falls, striking the floor with a hollow thud, and then suddenly silence again, complete, smothering. For one heartbeat, the world holds its breath. Then from beyond the wall, a final crash, louder, closer, ending in a shattering roar. The doors tremble. The light flickers. Someone screams. The siege has breached. The Lord draws his sword. It looks bright, beautiful, utterly useless against what's coming. You step back, feeling the tremor of the walls around you, the pulse of the castle as it braces for the end. You realize something in that moment, something cold and perfect. All castles, no matter how strong, were never built to last forever. They were built to delay, to make dying take longer. The fire flares once more before dying. Ash drifts through the air, glowing briefly before fading. The stone groans as if in pain. You close your eyes. You can still hear the echo of the ram, the scream of metal, the moan of the wind through broken walls. You breathe in the dust, the smoke, the memory. When the siege came, the castle remembered what it truly was. Not a palace, but a promise carved from fear. And in the soft crackle of embers, in the smell of ash and blood, it whispers the same truth it always has. Stone can't keep death out. It only teaches you how to wait for it quietly. The battle is over, but the war has only just begun. The enemy no longer charges the gate. They wait, and that is worse. A siege is not a storm. It is a slow drowning. One breath at a time, the days blur together now. Smoke hangs low in the courtyard, clinging to your skin like another layer of clothing. The air smells of ash and wet stone, of fear that has gone stale. The castle is quieter than ever, though not truly silent. Every few minutes you still hear the dull thud of a distant stone striking the outer wall, like the heartbeat of something vast and cruel. After each impact, dust falls from the ceiling, drifting like grey snow. No one looks up anymore. You sit near the hearth, though there is no fire left to feed. The wood stores burned out 3 days ago. Now what warmth remains comes from the bodies around you, the press of people, the slow exhale of the living. It is winter outside, and you can feel it creeping in. At first, hunger feels like emptiness. Then it becomes noise. Your stomach growls louder than the wind, and your head hums with faint ringing. You chew your tongue just to trick your body into silence. There's still water, for now. But the bread ran out a week ago. The salted meat turned green and sour. The last grain was boiled with so much water it tasted of nothing. You chew shoe leather and pray for rain. That's what the captain said. And so you do. You strip the soles from worn boots, soak them overnight, boil them until the broth turns grey. It smells like smoke and despair, but you drink it anyway. It fills the space inside you where food used to live. The Lord still holds his head high, though his armor no longer fits the same. His hands tremble when he speaks. The servants pretend not to notice. He orders rations to be measured, as if numbers could stop starvation. Each person receives a handful of barley, or a crust of bread if one can be found. The children cry when their turn ends, scraping at the bowls for crumbs. The mothers hush them with whispers, soft, empty promises. The chapel bells no longer ring. The priest lost his voice from praying too loud. You can smell death beginning, not the sharpness of rot, but the faint sweetness that seeps from the skin when the body starts to forget itself. You go to the wall. The air outside is still. The enemy's campfires glow faintly on the horizon, small and patient. They don't shout, don't taunt, they wait. Because they know what hunger does better than any blade. This is the secret of siege warfare. You don't have to break the wall. You just have to break the people behind it. In the old days, armies would surround a fortress like this for months, sometimes years. They'd cut off trade routes, poison wells, block rivers. They'd build siege towers taller than the walls, rolling them forward on wooden wheels, while archers fired from their upper decks. They'd dig tunnels beneath the foundations, filling them with oil and wood to burn the supports from underneath. And always they'd wait for hunger to finish the job. No army is as cruel as famine. It never sleeps. It never misses its mark. By the third week, your body changes. You move slower, speak less. Every sound feels louder. A dropped bucket, a cough, the scrape of a spoon. Even breathing seems like a theft. The smell of the castle deepens. No one can clean anymore. The rushes are soaked with waste, the walls black with soot. The garderobe drips into the moat below, but the moat is dry now, drained by drought and ash. The stink comes back up through the hole like a ghost. People start sleeping wherever they fall, near doors, against barrels, on the stairs. You step over them carefully, pretending not to see how shallow their breathing has become. The Lord calls a meeting in the great hall. What once echoed with feasts now smells of mildew and smoke. The tapestries sag with moisture, their colors faded to gray. He stands at the head of the table, pale and thin, his voice steady but small. He says the outer wall will hold, that reinforcements are coming, that the king knows of their courage. No one believes him. But no one dares to say so. You look around and realize how strange it is, and how hope, once shared, can make people strong, and once lost, can make them strangers. That night a fire starts near the stables. A single spark from a candle left too long. The hay catches. The flames spread fast, roaring, climbing the rafters. For a moment you feel warmth again, and you hate yourself for it. The guards try to smother the blaze with wet cloths. The smoke fills the courtyard, thick and black. Horses scream and a sound like tearing metal. When it's over, half the roof is gone. The bodies glow red in the ashes. You sit by the wreckage as snow begins to fall, white flakes settling on black wood. The contrast is almost beautiful. But the snow melts into the blood and the beauty dies. The next day, the first deserter tries to leave. He climbs the wall at dawn, desperate, barefoot, trembling. The guards stop him. They can't risk anyone opening the gates. He begs them to kill him. They don't. They just watch as he cries until the sun rises. He never moves again. Time loses shape. The moon rises, sets, returns again, indifferent. The stars keep shining over both armies, the starving and the waiting. You sit in the chapel now, surrounded by silence. Candles burn low, wax pooling like tears. You look at the carved faces of saints and think they seem hollow too. You whisper a prayer, though you don't know who's listening anymore. The child beside you clutches a wooden cross, too weak to lift her head. Her mother hums softly, a lullaby that sounds more like mourning. Outside, the wind shifts. The smell of fire returns, and faint but close. The siege engines creak again. You can hear the ropes tightening, the sound of tension ready to snap. They're coming back. Not with swords, but with patience sharpened to a blade. You think of the world beyond the walls, of fields, rivers, the sound of birds. You try to remember how bread smelled fresh from the oven, how wine felt warm in your throat. But memory fades too, thinned by hunger. The castle hums faintly in the dark. Its stones are slick with condensation, its air heavy with despair. You press your hand against the wall and feel it tremble, not from impact but from something deeper. From exhaustion. Even the castle is tired. That night the rain finally comes, soft, hesitant, falling through cracks and broken tiles. You lift your face to it, open your mouth, let it wash the ash from your tongue. It tastes like dirt and heaven. The others join you, hands outstretched, laughing weakly through cracked lips. The water runs through the gutters, down the walls, across the courtyard. It mingles with the blood and the soot, turning the ground into a river of grey. For a moment the castle breathes again. The thirst eases. The world feels almost alive. But then the thunder of another stone breaks the calm. It strikes the wall, shaking the ground beneath your feet. The laughter dies. The dust falls again. You realize it then. The siege will not end with battle. It will end with silence, with one last crash that no one will hear. You chew shoe leather and pray for rain. You drink what you can and wait for dawn. The fire is gone, the stone is crumbling, and hunger has become part of you. Somewhere outside, an enemy soldier stokes his campfire, warming his hands against the cold. He eats his bread, drinks his ale, and wonders how much longer you can hold. He doesn't know that inside these walls you already broke days ago, quietly, without sound. The castle from the sunlight above looks eternal. Strong walls, proud towers, and banners that flutter like the breath of order. But beneath it, in the damp black heart of stone, lies the truth of what power truly means. It is not gold. It is not crowns. It is control over suffering. Tonight we go below, to the place where voices fade, where torches struggle to live, where justice turns into silence. The dungeons. You descend the narrow stair, torch in hand. The air grows colder, heavier, tasting of wet iron and salt. Each step echoes for too long, the sound bouncing off unseen walls, multiplying until you're not sure which footsteps are yours anymore. The light flickers. You feel the dampness first. Walls slick with condensation, your breath turning white. The smell comes next. Rot mildo rust, and something else faint but unmistakable. The sweet, sour stench of decay. The castle above smells of life, smoke, food, and humanity. Down here it smells like memory. A place where time no longer moves. The stairs end in a low archway. You have to duck to pass through. Your torch flares weakly, painting the stone in trembling gold. Ahead stretches a corridor of darkness, lined with doorways that lead to nothing good. You stop at the first one. A heavy oak door bound with black iron. A small slit near the top, for light or for watching. You peer through. Inside, a small room, no window. Just a straw mat, black with age, and a ring of rusted chain set into the wall. A puddle glistens in the corner. Though it hasn't rained in weeks, you don't see anyone. But you don't have to. The room feels occupied. The walls remember too much. You can almost hear the echo of breath, slow and shallow, the kind that comes from a chest too tired to rise again. The dungeons were not built for screaming, though screams lived here often enough. They were built for waiting, for the slow, patient kind of punishment that doesn't need spectacle. A noble's prisoner might see sunlight again. A soldier might be ransomed or exchanged. But for the unlucky, the thief, the heretic, the spy, this place was the end of the world. Their punishments were simple: darkness, hunger, and time. You move deeper. The floor slopes downward. Your torch hisses as it nears the damp air. Drips of water fall from the ceiling in slow rhythm, marking seconds like a clock with no hands. The sound fills the void. You step into another chamber, larger, circular, the walls glistening. Chains hang from iron rings, their ends trailing across the floor. They look almost harmless, until you notice how they're worn smooth where hands once pulled against them. The smell here is worse. Not sharp, but thick, almost solid. It coats your tongue when you breathe. You taste rust, you hold the torch closer. The light catches on something carved into the wall. Scratches, faint, deliberate. Letters maybe, names. You can't read them all, but you can tell what they mean. The proof of existence from those who knew they'd soon vanish once a prisoner would be lowered through the trapdoor above, the same way a sack of grain might be lowered to the cellar. The guards rarely spoke to them. Food came once a day, a bowl of gruel, a cup of water if the jailer remembered. If not, the darkness fed on them faster. Disease was the true jailer here. Fever spread through straw mats and rags. Fleas carried sickness from one prisoner to the next. Wounds rotted before they healed. Sometimes the guards could smell the dead before they noticed the silence. No one cleaned these cells. No one prayed here. Even the priests stayed away, saying the souls below were beyond help. You sit for a moment on the cold floor. The torchlight flickers against the walls, throwing moving shadows that look almost human. Your heartbeat sounds too loud in this place. You wonder how long a mind would last here. How many days until you started talking to the walls just to hear another voice? The castle above is filled with rules and order, lords, banners, prayers. But down here there are no titles, no saints, no mercy. Just breath and bone and the waiting between them. You move on deeper still. The air barely moves now. Each inhale feels borrowed. The last cell stands open, its door cracked and leaning. Inside, a skeleton slumps against the wall, half buried in dirt. The bones are yellow, the skull tilted upward as though listening for footsteps that never came. Around its ankle, the chain remains, locked, rusted, unmoving. The wall behind it bears faint marks of scraping, the kind made by fingernails. You lower the torch. The shadows crawl higher across the walls. The silence in this cell is heavier than death. It feels like a pause that never ended. Not every punishment here ended in death. Some were released, broken, hollowed, half blind from the dark. They stumbled out into daylight, skin gray, eyes watering, their voices reduced to whispers. They returned to villages that didn't remember them. Some wandered into the woods and were never seen again. Others begged to come back because the world above felt too bright, too fast, too cruel after the stillness below. The dungeon changes you. It teaches you that light is not a comfort, but an intrusion. That silence can be safer than mercy. You think of the jailer, the man who kept the keys. He lived alone in a room by the stairs, his lamp always burning. He never saw the sun. He ate in silence, slept beside his ring of keys, and died surrounded by them. When they found him, his fingers were still curled around the largest one, the one that no lock had ever needed. You stand to leave. The torch sputters, almost gone. The air behind you feels thick, as if the dark doesn't want to let you go. You climb the stairs slowly. Each step creaks, each breath burns. The sound of dripping fades, replaced by wind, real wind, and faint light above. When you finally step out into the courtyard, the air feels thin, fragile, alive. You take a long breath. It hurts your throat, the taste of freedom after so much stone. But even here, beneath the open sky, you can still feel it, that dampness on your skin, the smell of the dungeon clinging to your clothes. You realize it never really leaves. No one who's been below ever forgets, because the castle, for all its splendor, carries its darkness inside like a secret. Every wall, every floor, every quiet corridor is built above the memory of what waits beneath. And if you listen closely, on nights when the wind slips through the cracks, you can still hear it. A faint clink of chains, a drip of water, the sound of someone breathing in the dark. It's only the castle settling, they'll tell you. Only the stone shifting in the cold, but deep down you know better. The dungeon never sleeps. It just waits for the next sound of footsteps descending into its quiet, endless hunger. After the noise of battle, the choking smoke, the echoes of chains and screams, the castle falls quiet again. Not in peace, but in exhaustion. And in that quiet, something else rises. Something older than war, older than the walls themselves. Faith, the last refuge when there is nowhere left to run. The only warmth that does not burn out. The chapel sits in the heart of the castle, small, dark and cold, yet somehow still sacred. You find it by instinct, not by map. The air grows still the moment you step inside, as if the world beyond the door has stopped breathing. Your boots touch the flagstones. They're worn smooth by centuries of knees and prayers. You can smell wax, damp, and a faint trace of incense, that sweet smoke clinging to the walls like memory. Candles flicker on stone saints with missing faces. Their eyes are gone, chipped away by time or war, yet they seem to watch you still. Their mouths, eroded by centuries, no longer bless or condemn. They simply endure, like the castle, like the faith that built it. A monk kneels near the altar, his head bowed. He moves slowly, rhythmically, his lips forming words too soft to hear. In the silence, even the scrape of his robe against the floor sounds like music. The chapel light is fragile, just candles, dozens of them, trembling in their holders. Their flames bend and bow as if they too are praying. The air shimmers with their breath. Each candle burns for someone, a lord at war, a child sick with fever, a soul long gone. Each flame a plea, a bargain with heaven to look this way just once more. You sit on a wooden bench, the surface cool beneath your hands. You listen to the rhythm of the monks' chant, low, patient, circular. It doesn't rise, it doesn't fall. It just is, like the walls, like the centuries. Outside, the wind howls through arrow slits. Inside, it becomes a whisper, soft, hollow, weaving through the pillars like an unseen choir. You look up at the ceiling, the ribs of the vault meeting high above in a stone cross. Every inch carved by human hands, tired, faithful, afraid. Each line a prayer frozen in shape. You think of those who built this place, the masons and monks who worked side by side. For them, every hammer strike was devotion, every lifted stone a hymn. They believed that if they built high enough, the sky would listen, that if they carved enough saints, the saints would notice. That faith could be made solid, given walls and corners so it could never be taken away. The monk rises. His face is lined, his eyes deep and distant. He lights a new candle from an old one, flame to flame, past to present, and whispers, "Lux perpetua," eternal light. You watch the smoke curl upward in thin ribbons, twisting toward the ceiling and vanishing into shadow. There's no sound but the soft crackle of wax melting, the faint rustle of robes and your own heartbeat. For a moment, you feel the world outside dissolve. No war, no hunger, no stone. Just breath and flame. Faith inside these walls is not the faith of cities. It's quieter, more desperate. Here every prayer is a trade. Comfort for obedience, hope for submission. The people pray because they must. Because there is no medicine, no escape, no promise but this one. They pray for rain, for mercy, for forgiveness for sins they never meant to commit. Even the Lord prays now, not with words but with silence, standing at the back of the chapel, staring at the crucifix. His sword hangs heavy at his side, its steel catching the candlelight. The wax drips onto the floor, marking time like falling sand. He doesn't kneel. He doesn't have to. The fear in his eyes is devotion enough. The priest enters, robes whispering. He sprinkles holy water across the room, tiny droplets catching the light like glass. You feel one hit your hand cold as snow. He murmurs blessings in Latin, his voice smooth and worn from repetition. He said these same words for decades, maybe a lifetime. They're less meaning than motion now, less prayer than ritual. The body moving because it remembers how to hope. He stops before a statue of the Virgin, her face cracked, her paint long gone. A candle burns at her feet. Someone has placed a single flower there. Wilted, colorless, but real. You wonder who brought it, and why superstition lives here too. Woven through the faith like vines through stone. There's a charm hanging by the doorway, a small pouch of herbs said to keep demons away. Someone's drawn a symbol of protection in charcoal above the arch. And behind the altar, hidden beneath the cloth, lies a bone. A relic, they say, from a saint whose name no one remembers. The monks believe it holds power. The servants believe it holds safety. And the Lord believes it holds order. No one questions it. Faith doesn't need proof here. It just needs to be believed. You step outside the chapel and find the courtyard bathed in moonlight. The war seems distant now. The fire's gone, the air still. Snow drifts through the open sky, flakes settling softly on the broken stones. The castle breathes again, slower, calmer. You can almost feel its heart beating through the earth. Above, the chapel window glows faintly gold from within. You watch the light tremble against the night, small and steady, a pulse of warmth against the cold. You think of the faces behind that glow, the monk, the priest, the silent Lord. Each one holding on to faith not as triumph but as survival, not as power but as surrender, because inside the walls belief is not a choice. It's the only thing left to hold. The wind rises again, carrying with it the faint smell of smoke and wax. You close your eyes. In your mind, the candlelight still flickers on those faceless saints, their stone eyes watching through centuries of dust. They've seen everything: hunger, cruelty, devotion, love. And through it all, they've kept their silence. You understand now. That silence is faith. It doesn't shout. It doesn't demand. It simply endures, the same way the castle does, the same way the people within it must. You take one last look at the chapel window before turning away. The golden light fades behind you, swallowed by the night. But in your mind it keeps burning. A single candle in endless dark, fragile, defiant, eternal, lux perpetua, eternal light. And in the hush that follows as snow drifts over the cold stones, the castle seems to whisper the prayer back, not to heaven but to itself, because even stone, when left long enough in darkness, learns how to believe in light. Dawn rises pale and soundless over the castle. The mist drifts low across the courtyard, catching on the broken spears and frost-bitten banners. Somewhere below, a blacksmith's hammer begins to strike, slow, steady, like a heartbeat buried in the stone. Inside, the corridors stir with softer sounds, small footsteps, quiet laughter, a door creaking open. It is the hour of the children. They are the youngest souls within the fortress, sons of lords, daughters of nobles, and the pages who serve them. They were born behind these walls, and to them, the world beyond is only a story. The castle is their sky, their village, their universe of stone. You see them now walking in single file behind a tutor, grey-robed, thin, his face as colourless as parchment. Their breath smokes in the cold air. They carry books, though few can truly read. Their wooden shoes clack against the flagstones in neat, frightened rhythm. They will spend the morning learning Latin prayers and the laws of inheritance, how to measure obedience in silence. They will bow when the tutor enters, speak only when called upon, and learn that fear and discipline are cousins. It is the first lesson of a noble child. Power must never look uncertain. Later, when the lessons end, the boys train in the courtyard. They wear padded tunics, wooden swords heavy in their small hands. The master-at-arms shouts commands, his voice rough as gravel. Strike, block. Again. The blades clash, thock, thock. Dull wood against wood echoing across the yard like mock thunder. A few boys grin, thrilled by the noise, by the dream of knighthood. Others fight tears, wrists bruised, fingers trembling. When one drops his sword, the master strikes his shoulder with the flat of a real blade. Not hard enough to wound, but enough to remind. Discipline first. Mercy later, the boy nods, swallowing pain. He is 8. From the wall above, the Lord watches, silent. He says nothing. He once stood where they stand. He learned the same way, through bruises and the weight of eyes that expected perfection. The girls are elsewhere, upstairs, in the solar where sunlight struggles through narrow windows. Their lessons are different, but no less cruel. They learn to weave, to write small and beautiful, to smile when their hands bleed from the needle. They practice curtsies until their knees ache, and prayers until their voices tremble. Their teacher, a stern woman with silver hair, whispers, "Remember, my lady, as patience is armor." The youngest, a girl of 10, stares out the window instead. She watches the boys below swinging wooden swords. She wants to run down and join them. She doesn't. She already knows that freedom is not for her. Her world will be smaller, stitched between duty and obedience. The same stone that protects her will one day be her cage. When lessons end, the children are allowed to roam. They spill into the corridors, giggling, chasing, whispering secrets in corners the adults pretend not to see. Their laughter echoes strangely against the cold walls, too bright for the space that holds it. It feels borrowed, fragile, like sunlight caught in a frozen river. They play hide and seek among the tapestries and stairwells. One hides behind a door and finds an old helmet there, rusted and heavy. He tries it on, laughing, until it slips too low, cutting into his skin. He yanks it off, leaving a thin line of blood across his forehead. He stares at it in silence. The laughter fades. He does not tell anyone. He simply hides the helmet again. That's how children here learn, not through stories but through cuts. In the evenings the pages serve at table. They carry platters, refill cups, and stand motionless behind the lords they might one day become. They listen to every word, the talk of war, of taxes, of executions, trying to understand, afraid to breathe too loud. Now and then a drunken knight tousles a boy's hair or calls him future warrior. The boy smiles because he must, but his hands shake as he pours the next drink. He has seen what war does. The bodies dragged through the gate after the last siege, the blood on the courtyard stones that never washed away, the sound of crying behind closed doors. He knows the stories are lies. Bravery is never as clean as it sounds. Still he repeats the words. He dreams of shining armor because he must believe in something. When night falls, the children sleep in a small chamber near the servants. The rushes on the floor are new this week, but the smell of smoke still lingers. The air is cold. They huddle together for warmth, whispering stories before sleep. Tales of dragons, of saints, of ghosts who wander the battlements. One boy insists he saw a knight without a head walking the walls at dawn. The others laugh, but their laughter fades too quickly. They know better than to mock the dead here. The castle remembers too many. The youngest curls beneath a blanket and asks softly, "Will we ever leave?" No one answers. They close their eyes and dream of open fields, of rivers that shine like silver, of a world that doesn't end in stone. But when morning comes, the sound of the bell calls them back, to prayers, to lessons, to the endless rhythm of obedience. Some of them will grow into knights. Some will marry strangers. Some will die before they reach 16, crushed beneath a horse or struck by fever. And a few, the luckiest perhaps, will never leave the keep at all, because the castle does not just shape its children. It consumes them. It turns their innocence into ritual, their play into training, their dreams into duty. They learn to stand still when spoken to hide their fear behind calm faces, to believe that pain is noble. By the time they are grown, they no longer remember laughter that wasn't permitted. In the chapel, the monk lights candles for them, one for each child born under this roof. He prays that they might live long enough to see peace. He knows most will not, but he lights them anyway because that is his own kind of faith. The flames flicker softly, reflecting off the faces of the carved angels. One of them has a missing hand. Another's wings are chipped away. They still look beautiful in the light, broken but holy. So do the children of the keep. Outside, snow begins to fall in silent, endless, white as parchment. The children wake and run to the window, pressing their small hands against the glass. They laugh as flakes touch their palms, melt and vanish. For a moment they are just children again. No titles, no lessons, no fear. The snow keeps falling. The laughter fades. The tutor calls them back to their lessons. You watch them go, small figures swallowed by the corridors, their footsteps soft as prayer. The castle takes them as it always does, and long after they're gone, the echo of their voices lingers in the halls, bright, fleeting, almost impossible to believe. It sounds like innocence trying to survive in a place that forgot how to dream. Time does not destroy the castle. It forgets it, and that is always worse. The war ends, the lords die. The banners fade, and the world so small once within these walls simply moves on. What remains is silence, the long, patient kind that doesn't need to win. Because in the end, even stone learns how to surrender. Rain finds every crack, and from there it begins. Centuries pass like breath. The courtyard grass grows high where soldiers once stood. The drawbridge rots, its chains red with rust. The moat dries into a shallow ditch where frogs sing at dusk. The great gate leans, the battlements crumble, and moss, gentle, green, relentless, climbs the walls like memory reclaiming its place. Every drop of rain that falls whispers the same soft vow. You were never meant to last forever. If you walk here now, you can still feel the shape of what once was. The stones remember. They always do. Each step you take crunches on broken slate, crushed bone of architecture. The air smells of wet earth, iron, and age, the scent of endings written slowly. In the great hall, sunlight falls through holes in the roof, thick with dust. What used to be a ceiling of carved beams is now a canopy of sky. Birds nest in the rafters that remain. Their calls echo in the same space where kings once dined and knights swore oaths. You stand there quiet, and you can almost hear them still. Faint laughter, the scrape of goblets, the murmur of prayer. The air hums with ghosts that don't know they've gone. The chapel lies in ruin too. Its saints, once proud, once painted in color and gold, are now faceless. Rain has carved streaks down their bodies, like tears frozen in stone. The altar is cracked. The candles long gone. Only the smell of moss remains, cool and damp. When the wind moves through the empty windows, it sounds like chanting, a low rhythmic moan that rises and falls, as if the building itself still prays. You close your eyes and imagine the monk lighting his last candle centuries ago, wax dripping, flame trembling, before fading into nothing. Now the only light that touches the chapel comes from the moon, and it feels wholly still. The tower stands longest. It always does. Built from the hardest stone, meant to outlast time itself. But even it leans now, a fraction more each year. The spiral stairs have collapsed halfway up, and ivy has wound itself through the cracks, pulling down what gravity alone could not. At the top, where a watchman once kept vigil, you find nothing but sky. Blue, infinite, unbothered. The horizon stretches like an ocean of mist. The castle that once ruled this land is now just another hill, half swallowed by green. You sit there for a while, listening, wind through the grass. The call of a crow, the soft drip of water somewhere deep below. Everything else is gone, but the quiet remains. It's a beautiful kind of loneliness. Rain begins again, slow and cold. It slides down the stone, tracing the same paths it has for hundreds of years. Each drop finds a crack, widens it, carries away a grain of history. You watch as it runs down carvings that no longer mean anything, over initials long unreadable, over doors that lead nowhere. You think of the masons who built this place, hands blistered, faces lined with purpose. They dreamed of permanence. They believed in forever. But forever was never the promise of stone, only the illusion. Even mountains fall. Even walls weep. A tree grows now in the middle of the courtyard, its roots wrapped through the flagstones, its branches high against the sky. It hums softly in the wind, the way wood does when it remembers thunder. Its bark gleams dark and wet, and its leaves drip silver with rain. If you listen closely, it almost sounds like the castle breathing again. Slower, older, but alive in a different way. Nature is not cruel. It only reclaims what was always hers. Travelers pass sometimes, shepherds, wanderers, curious souls like you. They stop and stare, whisper to each other. Some take stones as keepsakes. Some sketch what's left, but none of them stay. They feel what you feel, that the place is not entirely empty, that the air here carries memory too deep to be broken. Sometimes, when the light fades, you can see shapes moving in the mist. Just the wind, you tell yourself, or tricks of shadow. But the feeling remains. The castle is not haunted by ghosts. It is the ghost. You walk through the ruins one last time. Past the gatehouse where the hinges have fused with rust. Past the kitchen, where ivy drips from what used to be a chimney. Past the servants' quarters, where a single wall still stands, window framing nothing but sky. Each space tells its story, quietly. You realize that decay is not destruction. It's remembrance in motion. Every crumble is a word, every crack a line of history written by rain, every silence a song the living forgot to finish. When night falls, the rain becomes gentler. The castle glows faintly in the storm, stone glistening like skin, moss shining emerald under the lightning. The air smells clean again, alive. The ghosts are quiet tonight, lulled by the rhythm of the weather that's worn them down for centuries. You stand where the great hall once stood and lift your face to the rain. It's cold but not cruel. It feels like forgiveness. You whisper something, not a prayer, not a farewell, just a wordless sound, and it echoes softly off the empty walls, joining the chorus of everything that has ever been said here. The storm passes. The moon returns. Mist rises from the grass like breath from sleeping lungs. The castle gleams faintly silver, fragile and infinite all at once. You turn to leave. The path behind you glows wet with moonlight, winding down through what used to be a moat. At the top of the ruins, a single stone breaks loose, tumbles quietly down and settles into the mud. The sound is soft, final. The castle exhales and sleeps again. Centuries from now, even this will vanish. The walls will fall, the tree will die, the roots will rot, and new earth will rise above it all. No one will remember the names carved into the stones. But maybe if the wind passes just right, someone will still hear an echo. Faint, distant, almost like a voice. A whisper of what once stood here. A reminder that even things built to last must learn how to let go. Because time is not the enemy of the castle. It is the artist that finishes what man began. You take one last look at the ruins, the moss, the cracks, the shadows. The rain has stopped. The moonlight has found every broken edge and turned it silver. It's beautiful, not because it survived, but because it didn't need to. And somewhere deep within its walls you can still feel it breathing, not as fortress, not as relic, but as memory itself. The rain has stopped. Only the quiet remains. The last drops slide down the worn stones, tracing the same paths carved by centuries of weather and touch. You stand at the edge of what was once a fortress, once a home, once a heartbeat of history, now just ruin and silence. And yet, it still feels alive. If you listen closely, you can almost hear it breathe, soft, slow, like an old soul remembering its name. This is where all stories end, not in fire or glory, but in the gentle return to stillness. The castle that once echoed with the sound of swords, prayers, and laughter now speaks in whispers made of rain and wind. Each stone holds a memory, not of kings or wars, but of footsteps, of breath, of living, and that, perhaps, is the truth it always wanted to tell. You remember how it began the first time you walked through those gates. You thought of marble halls, gleaming armor, velvet banners. You imagined romance, heroism, order, but the stones told a different story, of smoke and mud, of blood, sweat, and quiet suffering, of beauty buried beneath years of labor and fear. The illusion of castles, the one painted by songs and films, is bright and clean, made for dreaming. But reality was darker, heavier, more human. It smelled of earth and fire and hunger. It whispered of those who built without glory, who lived without rest, who died without names, and yet in their struggle, there was something beautiful too, something honest, because truth like stone does not shine. It endures. You picture it all again, the masons hammering through dust and blood, the servants carrying water through the cold dawn, the children tracing the lines of duty across their small, uncertain hearts. They are gone now, their names lost, their faces forgotten. But what they built remains, not in walls, but in the quiet memory of those walls. Every echo you heard, every shadow that felt alive was them, the sound of lives that mattered, even when history refused to write them down. That is what the castle teaches, that permanence is not found in stone, but in memory. And memory never truly dies. You walk once more through the ruins. The wind drifts through broken arches, carrying faint scents of moss and rain. Somewhere a bird calls, high, lonely, pure. It bounces between the walls like the ghost of a bell. The air feels different now, lighter, as if the centuries have loosened their grip. You touch the wall one last time. It's cool beneath your fingers, smooth where countless hands once brushed against it. The stone does not resist your touch. It accepts it. One more mark in the long history of being touched, held, remembered. You realize something then. Time is not the enemy of memory. It is the thing that gives it shape. Without time, there would be no echo, no after, no reflection. Just silence. And silence, too, has its own kind of grace. The castle has become part of the earth now. The moss that climbs its walls is its new skin. The rain that seeps through its cracks is its pulse. The grass that grows through its stones is its breath. What was once fortress has become forest. What was once wall has become whisper. Nothing truly ends. It only changes form. The people who lived here, fought here, prayed here. They are the soil now, the wind, the faint hum in the air when you stand very still. They've joined the chorus of everything, and the castle sings their song in silence. You take one last look before leaving. The moon has risen, soft, distant silver on the wet stone. The light glides over the broken battlements, turning ruin into beauty again. Even decay has its dignity. For all its cracks and ghosts, the castle still stands. Not as a monument to power, but as a witness to time. And maybe that's what it always was. Not a weapon of kings, but a vessel of memory. A place that gathered stories and kept them safe, long after those who made them were gone. You walk away slowly, the sound of your footsteps blending with the rhythm of the night. Each step echoes once, then fades, then echoes again, smaller, softer, until it disappears completely. But in that fading lies something perfect. The echo does not vanish. It becomes part of the stillness, part of the story, and perhaps that is the only immortality any of us ever get, to leave a sound behind even if no one remembers where it came from. The stars above shimmer faintly through a thin veil of cloud. They look ancient, unchanged, but they too are dying slowly, beautifully. Everything does. Even light, even stories. But for tonight they burn for you. Quiet fires above the ruins of an older world. They remind you that endings are not final, only peaceful. A pause between heartbeats. A rest before the next telling. You reach the outer field where the grass bends in the wind, and the castle fades into silhouette behind you, a dark mountain of memory against the pale sky. You think of all the lives that passed within it, all the breaths, all the whispered prayers and cries and dreams, and you whisper your own small prayer, not to any god but to time itself, to remember softly, because history is not just what was. It is what remains in the quiet between what we forget. The night deepens, the world slows. You feel yourself growing still too, breathing in rhythm with the air, with the ruins, with the earth that has seen everything come and go. If you listen closely, you'll still hear the echoes of stone. Not loud, not frightening, just the sound of everything that once was and still is in the quiet of memory. You let that sound fill you. You let it settle. And then you let it go. If you've walked this far with me, and through smoke and silence, through faith and fire, through the long dreams of the castle, then rest now. You've seen the truth beneath the myth, the humanity beneath the history. You've heard how time breathes, how even ruins still whisper. So as you close your eyes, remember this: nothing truly ends. Every echo becomes another story. And when the night returns, we'll walk again through another time, another place, and listen for what history still dares to whisper. If you enjoyed this journey through the past, join me again next night, where the walls still speak, where memory still breathes, and where in the quiet between words the past finally finds its rest. Good night, and may the echoes keep you company.